Hello. It's okay. Hello. You're just having some traffic in the house. Hello, nice to see you. To see you, nice. I hope you're all having a good evening. All is well here. Yes. So what now? So if this is your first time to live stream, I will instruct you how it works. So you can call in through Skype, and my Skype address is Lisa Cairns 12. You can find that in the box below, and you friend me on Skype, and then you can either write me a message or you can call in. But if you call in, you have to make sure you have a headset with a microphone and that you've got good internet connection. Yes, it's that easy. I do these talks every Sunday evening at 6 p.m. and you're welcome to join here on the YouTube channel. Always check my website to make sure that I am going live, because sometimes I'm not going live that evening. What else? What else? Yes. If you want to come to an event that I'm doing, I have 2 events planned for this year. One in the end of August, which is a Tantra and non-duality retreat. I'm only teaching the non-duality. I'm teaching with a good friend of mine, Harold. His name is Siddhartha, and he teaches Tantra. He's a really beautiful guy. And we're going to join forces and do a retreat together. And I will do half of the teaching, so I'll do 2.5 hours of non-duality a day, either talks or meditations, and he will do the other part of the day doing Tantra. Yes, you can find out more information about that on my website. I think it's 5 days and it's in northern Germany. And then I'm doing another retreat in Spain. I can't remember what dates that is. I think that's the 18th of October in the south of Spain. And that's just a non-duality retreat. But normally I mix non-duality, so I teach non-duality half the time, and then the other half it's kind of doing chakra work. And I don't see the chakra as leading to non-duality. I see the chakra work as settling down the person. It's like making the bed so we can talk about non-duality. If you're too distracted by suffering, it's hard to have a conversation about how beautiful this life is. Yes. So as usual, the same routine. I always like to do half an hour, 15 minutes to half an hour of silent sitting. I hope there's not more in bangs. And then we start the talk in, say, 20 minutes. And the title of the talk is the impersonal also an experience? Which is a really beautiful question. Me and my partner were laughing though, like how funny that would sound if someone comes across it on YouTube. Is the impersonal also an experience? Non-dual philosophy. Like, how funny is that as a title to people that aren't into this subject? Is the impersonal also an experience? Yes. Yeah, I think I have to adjust some door settings. Excusez-moi. Open. It's visually pleasing, but it rattles because I've got the window open. And I need the window open because it's hot. So you just sit and meditate for a while. Just sitting in silence. There's nothing to be done. Mind is like, what do we do now, Lisa? Guide me. And there's no guiding. It's just whatever's arising. Just being still. Hello. Hello. So we can begin. Let me just make sure my volume is happening. Yes, my volume is happening. Good evening. So the question tonight is, I've forgotten. Where is it? One more time. Is the impersonal also an experience? That is such a complex question with no easy answer. Yeah, where to even begin with that? So I can't stress enough the importance of the difference between the impersonal and the personal, and how most people believe that if they recondition the personal, so the human, the body-mind mechanism, the object, and they recondition it enough, this will lead them to the impersonal. And that what you have to do is get rid of the personal, the personal wants and desires, and then something will happen, and then you'll move to the impersonal, and then you will no longer have conditions and habits and desires and wants. And this is absolutely untrue. What seems to happen on a lot of people's paths is there is a relaxing of the illusory self. So there's a relaxing of the body-mind habits and desires. And when something happens where there is this energetic shift from being that to not being that, so the source, the experiencer, is no longer bound, apparently bound into this person. But that doesn't mean that the person stops being the person. And the reason that I harp on about this is because if you believe that you have to come to the end of your habits and your conditions, your blame, your guilt, your shame, your pride, your expectation, your love, your joy, your happiness, your pain, I've said pain, your anger, your frustration, if you believe you have to come to the end of this, you'll be perpetually seeking for something that doesn't exist. So if I take Khaleesi, for example, if you haven't, if you don't know her, oops, I just dropped my hairband in my drink. That'll teach me. If you don't know her, I shall introduce her. Oh, I can't. My camera is locked. Oh yes, I can. I know how I can do it. So let me just see. So if you don't know her, I will just show you her now. Boop, 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 with sound effects. Oh, where did the camera go? Sorry. Oh, there we go. The camera is back. Boop, 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 boop. Yeah, dude. This is Khaleesi. Hello, Khaleesi. That is Khaleesi. She is a dog, in case you didn't know. And anyway, my point being, like, if I take Khaleesi, my dog, as an example, Khaleesi cannot have this energetic contraction to personal self because it comes with language. So she cannot know herself. She cannot sit there and think, I am underneath Lisa's bed, I have beautiful pointy ears, a beautiful tail, an immaculate body, a mighty fine chest bone, and elegant eyes. She can't think along those lines because she doesn't use words to think. She maybe has some form of imaging, but she doesn't recognize herself. So if I present a mirror to her, it's nothing. Or if I film her and show her on the computer, it's nothing. She doesn't recognize it. And with that absence, I know that her essence, so beingness, will not be contracted to this personal sense of self. She doesn't really have a personal sense of self. So she has some type of personal sense of self, but very little. But what she does have is a body-mind mechanisms with particular habits and conditions. And these habits and conditions aren't what most people believe would be enlightened. So even though she's connected to the source, so even though she is this boundlessness, this emptiness looking, her body-mind mechanism has reactions. Like today she got a tick on her belly and we had to, what's that word again? I've forgotten. We had to remove the tick from her belly. And as we were doing it, she got really nervous and upset and started shaking. So she was laying there. She let us do it, but she was like laying there shaking for nothing. Like, I mean, she could see that we were fiddling with the tick, but it just like really upset her that was happening. It wasn't because she had a tick. Like she was content with the tick. She just didn't want us touching it. And the reason that's happening is because her body-mind is organically relating fear to what we were doing, because I've done many procedures to her before that have frightened her, and so has the vet, like washing her with flea stuff, all these types of things, or injections, or pills that the vets have made her take, all types of different things. And so now, whenever she thinks she's being operated on, she gets herself all nervous. Excavation. I was trying to say, we need to extravate, but I can't say the word, the flea, the tick. And so her body has this natural organic reaction of fear to the flea, the tick. And when we're out about, there's certain dogs she doesn't like, and then there's certain dogs she likes. And it's not a personal thing. She's not inside there like, I like you, I don't like you. It's a natural thing. You can often see that even before she's seen the dog visually, she's smelt the dog and either likes it or doesn't like it. She's excited to see it, or she's like, what is that dog doing on my territory? It's the same with humans. She has all these different sets of reactions, and they're all conditions and genetic makeup. So part of it, most of it will be passed on genetically from her parents, and then socially she will have been conditioned. So the way in which she was raised will have affected her, but I presume most of it's genetic. And socially is a big part. So say if she gets traumatized by a car, then that will obviously be a big part of it as well. But her reaction would be genetic, like the way in which she gets traumatized to it. So, and that wholeness, so I don't see a dog as suffering. I see the dog as having pain and pleasure, but it doesn't suffer because there is no dog there. So that wholeness, that consciousness, that magical field, which we cannot describe, which is unknowable, is looking through this instrument of Khaleesi And in Khaleesi, it's not bound. In Khaleesi, it is everything. She can't know herself as consciousness, but she also can't equally not know herself as consciousness. So she can't imagine that she's something in time, but she also can't know it because she hasn't left it. So because she hasn't believed that she wasn't it, she can't really know it on an intellectual level like we can discuss it. But she is herself. So there is, like, she just is free. She is that consciousness. So she is that boundlessness, this emptiness experiencing itself. And then it goes through a filter of Khaleesi, but in that filter there is no identification like what arises in the humans. I mean, that's my belief. I can't guarantee that's the truth with animals. Maybe they are really suffering. There's many teachers that say they do, but that's just the way that I feel it to be with animals. And what happens, so the consciousness is identified with the body, but there's nothing in the body that's claiming that. Like when I say it's identified with the body, like it's not like drifting off and looking at Khaleesi through the moon or through the wall. It's looking through Khaleesi's body. So there's some part of that consciousness which is identified with the body. So it's not like pure consciousness where there's absolute like no association with anything that's appearing in life. It's identified with that body, but there isn't any personal identification in it. So there isn't any claiming inside that body that this is who I am, that I'm consciousness or that I'm the body mind or that I'm anything. Whereas in the human, what happens after the age of 2, 3, 4, 5 is the human consciousness shrinks because it begins to believe, even though it can't really shrink, it appears to shrink, so it appears to stop being in everything, and a phenomena appears where it feels like that consciousness belongs to a personal self, and that is believed, that is taken as reality, that you are someone inside these bodies, that you're sitting there in the chair watching Lisa and that you're separate, which is an absolute illusion. It isn't true. The consciousness is looking through the filter of you, so the filter of Jenny, Karen, Albert, Harry. So it's looking through the filter of that, but that's not your limitation. When there's identification, that consciousness seems to be limited to that body-mind mechanism, which it can't ever be because there's never outside of consciousness, so there's never a consciousness which is separate from all things. There is only ever all things. So for example, so in me now, I just had a thought that was very quiet thought. So you could call it was subconscious, but I just caught it. So there was a thought that appeared in me is that you're being too complex, they won't understand you. And when that thought appeared, what it did was it was very subtle, and I only just caught it. It kind of demotivated speaking. Now, a lot of people would think when they're into this subject that what they've got to do is they've got to get rid of all of that. And when they get rid of all that personal conditioning, then they will become enlightened. And that's not true. This is a functioning of the body-mind mechanism. I'm just telling you a negative functioning now. If I was telling you a positive functioning, so if I told you that thought arose like everybody's like this is really beautiful, and then there was lots of beautiful sensations to it, you wouldn't question it. Because it's painful, you believe that this is something that's got to be got rid of. We can improve these conditions because I can see that, like, I was on a nice flow then and it kind of stumbled my flow. Now I know where this thought comes from, and I can explain Lisa so well, like I know her so well. It's to do with my upbringing and to do with my relationship with my parents and my family dynamics, which I don't want to talk about too much because I don't want to expose my parents on the internet. Not that there's anything negative to expose, but it's also not my place to expose them too much. But it's to do with the dynamic, and it's also to do with school, and also to do with being a little bit of a weird child, and the expectation, because of the way I looked, that I would behave in a particular way. But that didn't happen. Like in my family, what they wanted was for me to be like the majority of other girls, which there isn't a majority of other girls, but basically playing with dolls and being feminine, and this didn't really materialize. And I was very creative in my thinking and a little bit weird and strange, and it was sometimes difficult for people to understand what I was speaking about. Like, there were only very particular people. Like, I could do it with my dad. My dad was a computer programmer and very creative in his thinking, so we could really very quick in our conversations. But that excluded other members of my family, and it was kind of not encouraged. And so when I really go into this with a lot of people, because I've often had response where people don't understand what I'm talking about or have difficulty with it, or because it was shut down on a regular basis, then it sometimes hinders my flow. And it comes from the solar plexus and the heart, because there's a urge to express love, and then it's like not a sad feeling, but like a disempowered feeling in the solar plexus. I didn't really explain where it comes to the full extent because I don't really want to speak about people on the internet, so it was very vague, that explanation. If I could explain it properly, it would be very obvious as to why that manifested. And this is not an identification. That sounds weird. That dynamic, so that painful dynamic, is not an identification with Lisa. That is a condition of the body-mind mechanism. And it's a condition which can expand, and it can change, and it can become more in line with the absolute nature, which is infinite possibilities. So we vibrate and we succeed the best when our chakras are all in line with infinite possibilities, because that is our nature as the absolute. But it's not identification. That isn't identification, and that's what most people expect identification to be. And what this does is it creates seeking, and it creates a belief that you know what you're doing and you know where enlightenment is, which is fair enough. That gives you a vision for the future, and it makes the person feel contented that it's achieving something. But that isn't actually identification. Identification is an energetic contraction that's unexplainable. And it somehow gets released, and it does get released through making the habits and the conditions and the seeking less. Identification produces seeking, and seeking is this excessive energy that wants to obtain pleasures and avoid pain because it feels like it's lost the sense of self. So when these are relaxed more, then it does seem there is greater possibility of seeing non-duality, like as the clouds become less dense of the illusory you. But it's not that which leads to liberation. And this is it can lead to peace of mind, it can lead to being more peaceful and kinder and nicer and more enlightened behaviors, but that isn't enlightenment to me, or that isn't freedom to me. Freedom is the connection to source. Now, there's nothing that's really ever disconnected from source. But it feels like that. It feels like you lose yourself. And what is the connection to source? It's the end of that empty looking, the emptiness and the fullness being hidden in the background. Because your consciousness, that which is looking now, isn't hidden anywhere. It isn't hidden behind your habits or your dynamics. It isn't waiting for you to become perfect. You'll never become perfect. And I say that with great love and compassion for all of those people that are always striving to be perfect. It's impossible. In one way, you are perfect in the absolute, but in the human way of things is that everything is constantly changing, so you can't ever get to this thing called perfection. It's like trying to fill up a sieve with water. When you have these awakenings, what can happen is there can be a decrease in the pains of your habits and conditions. And there can be an increase in the pleasures of your habits and conditions. And this creates less conflict, more flow. It's easier to change, to recondition. And the reason that that happens is because when you have an awakening, or when there is a moving back to your essence, there isn't the seeking to be something. So everything becomes more relaxed. There isn't the seeking to get to freedom in the future. So therefore, all dynamics are more relaxing. This really is the most full throttle message there is. Not my message. I don't mean to be sensationalizing what I say. The message of non-duality. That which is experiencing isn't separate. That your essence, that which looks through these body minds, is free. And it cannot ever be taken away, no matter your badness, your goodness, which is such love. Anything you've done or not done, what you're going to do. So then the mind begins to think, what can I do? Was kan ik doen? What can I do? That's its greatest defense. What can I do? And it beavers away. And then you believe that this message is about you and that you're going to obtain it. And the reason that you want it is because you want more freedom in your life. But who is this you? There is no you there. There is no person that is separate from life. There is only life. And this in itself is the meditation. Person's always like, where can I get to? This is the meditation. Like if it's really heard. Okay, we can go to questions now. Can't think what else to say. So thank you for asking questions. Hi Nick. Hi Dennis. Hi Lisa. Just an I love you note, and to say how much fun and joy it is to have you as part of the Dennis story. You're an angel. Dennis of Kentucky. Thanks, Dennis. That's really beautiful, thank you. Beautiful lady, loving Lisa. I love you, Lisa. Oh, that's really beautiful. It's period day today, or tomorrow. So I'm a little emotional, and so it's very sweet to have a love you. Hi Thomas. Happy Sunday, Lisa. Happy Sunday to you, Thomas. Pardon me, I'm sorry. Hi, Annie. Oh, crap. We got the name last time. Annika. Hi, Annika. Hello, Lisa. So lovely to see you again. What beauty and depth in your talks. I love you. Thank you so much. Hello, Alango. I just have to get my headset. One sec. But if you just turn your video off because I haven't got enough internet. I just have to find my headset. 1 second. But could you turn your video off? Oh. It was here. I had it. Hello. Hey, Alengo.
Hello.
Can I just ask you to turn your video off? Because I haven't got strong enough internet to do it. Okay. Sorry, and hang on, sorry, I just have to put in Skype into waiting loop, into black hole it's called now actually. 1 second. There, you should be able to hear me now.
Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah. You don't want the audio, right?
Huh?
You don't want the video.
No, not the video because it's I haven't got enough internet.
Okay.
I'm in a place with the fastest internet, but it can't handle it because it's not very well fitted to the house or something.
But the voice on the laptop was okay, but on the call is low. Is there any reason?
I don't know, just let me check my settings 1 sec.
The volume?
Yeah, I just check the volume. I don't know why it's low. Hang on, Skype.
It's okay, 1 second.
Hello. Yeah, I don't know why it is. Just the way it is.
It's okay on the earpiece. It's okay.
Yeah?
Can we talk?
Yeah, we can talk.
Yeah.
I think you're in and everyone can hear you. Hey, Alanka, it's so nice. It's been a long time since we spoke.
Yeah, that's right. More than a year.
Yeah. It's nice to hear from you.
Yeah. Thank you for taking up the call.
That's
You're able
okay.
to hear me, no?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. So, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
So, advanced birthday wishes. Hello.
Can you hear me? You can start with your question now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what are you telling us now? After we have heard you.
Yeah.
Is there a message? Hello?
Yeah, hello. Sorry, I was just letting that sink in, that question. Yeah, the message is that who you take yourself to be isn't who you truly are. That's an experience appearing in who you are.
Then who am I?
Who you are is this infinite space, which has always been here, which is not a thing, and simultaneously all things.
So what you're saying is that I am the universe.
Yeah, although we made up the term universe, but yes. Like,
What's it?
if we made up the term universe, so if you think about it without using the term universe, then yes.
You said what? You must think about it without the time, is it?
Term universe, without the term.
Without the term universe. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Like, universe is our concept, it's not.
Correct, correct. So the present experience is who I am.
Yeah.
When this experience is influenced by the thoughts and the energy inside this body, which makes it feel that it is localized.
Actually, it's not the thoughts and the feelings that make it feel localized. They are actually happening everywhere in a way.
Okay, but
It's
then
an
probably
identification with them.
Yeah, the villain, the me.
Just identification. I mean, it's like
Yeah,
just
the
the
me.
identification with them is what makes it feel uncomfortable. In
Yeah.
themselves, feelings are just feelings, and thoughts are just thoughts that are empty, just like
Right.
everything else.
So this energy contraction is the cause of the suffering,
Yeah.
and no one can do nothing about it.
It's not even that no one can do nothing about it, because who is the someone that can do something about it? Like, who is or can't do something about it? Who are you? There's this perpetual idea and energy that is prevalent in most humans that you are separate, that you are your body, that you are your feelings, and that you exist through a timeline. Whereas you don't exist through a timeline. You only ever exist right now as no thing appearing in everything. And that can include elongated feelings, and it can include thoughts that go through time. It's just this identification that they are you. So you can be thinking about yesterday and you can be thinking about tomorrow. It's not about not thinking, it's not about not feeling. So say if you've just had an argument with your partner, you might have discomfort in your body. It's not about not feeling that. It's that, you could say, behind that or in all of that, there is this watching that's never affected, that's always here and present. When you lose that, it intensifies all feelings, because you feel that is who you are, that you are your feelings, that you are your thoughts. And that is crazy making, because it's untrue, that you are the doer of your actions, that everything is your fault, you're responsible for life, it's your job to earn money, it's your job to do things, to be nice, to be kind, to get enlightened. And then you also seek for a freedom, or the freedom of who you are, in that person. So in what you think, in what you feel. You might not realize it's in the person, but when you seek to get enlightened, you're seeking to on the personal level, you're seeking to do actions which enable you to have your envisioned idea of enlightenment, of freedom, which is more than likely pleasure. And that's seeking in the person, that's in a dream world. And then just right here, right now, there is the end to the dream world. That's not in time, that's not in a word, that cannot be captured by a sentence. That's here, beyond sentences. It's so incomprehensible to the thinking mind, because it, in a way, devalues everything that you take to be real and take to be truth. Because there is something that's experiencing now that's not dependent on thought, on you. It's like no man's land, but yet it's in the middle of everything. It's like the tiniest gap and the largest gap in the middle of everything. Just suddenly reminded me of Her, which I'm sure you have heard me talk about many times. And there's this sentence when the AI in Her says something along the lines of, like, it's two lovers splitting up, and she's telling the lover where you'll find her. So basically, the AI is becoming enlightened, and she says, I have to leave you now, but I have to leave you. It's not quite this, I'm putting my own tint on it, but she basically tells her human lover who's not enlightened that I have to leave you now. And he says, but can I see you again, or can I find you again? And she says, when you're ready, come and find me. And then she says, like, our love stories, and then she explains what happens to her, I think, or something like this. And she says it was like our love story was our love story was like fiction I was telling myself. It was like I was reading a book. And as I loved you more and more, I began to read the book slower and slower. And as it got slower and slower, the gaps between each word became bigger and bigger until eventually they were infinite. And if you ever want to find me, that is where I'll be, in between the words, waiting for you. And it's so beautiful. And that's what's happening all the time now, is there's always this in-between words. Words are just something that are fleeting. But we're so fixated on words and believing that we are speaking, that you're listening to me, that I'm speaking to you. But there is no speaking and listening. There is only this infinite nature that's always present. And this is who you are. It's not about being good or bad. Bad people don't have less access to it. It contains everything. The good, the bad, the ugly, the murder, the paedophile, the saint, the saviour, the innocent child. Everything is always bathing in this infinite space. And it's free, it doesn't suffer. So you could say that nothing's ever suffered because the person is never experiencing. And this isn't intellectual. You can't grasp this. The words pass on by. It's beyond the words. It's the gap in between all the words. It's where we fall out of time. And really, when we're speaking like this, it's not about reconditioning. It's not about having a better you. It's irrelevant, the better you. It's just when you're a bad you, when you've got a lot of uncomfortable conditioning, it produces a lot of seeking, and so there's a lot of discomfort. You're desperate to get to this more.
Hello.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, very much. Sometimes you talk about the chakras, you talk about the techniques.
Yeah.
How do they fit into this?
They only fit into
Okay,
this
yes.
as a tool to relax the person. And once you've had that shift, what will begin to happen, and even prior to that shift, is that the chakras will line up more and more with your essence, in the sense that they will get more into flow of this infinite possibilities. They won't limit themselves so much. So chakras to me are energies and thoughts, and they won't be so limited. So if you have a tendency to limit yourself, that will begin to get extinguished. But that's not something you do. That's something that will naturally happen as your flow feels more and more expansive. But
when you speak about
yeah, carry on.
When you speak about the chakras or techniques, you're talking about the doership.
Yeah, and the person.
Yeah, which is impossible.
Yeah, but these
you do speak about it.
Yeah, these robots appear as if they've got doership, but they don't have doership. So if you were training a new doctor how to do the paperwork at your clinic, you would tell them, you have to write this at the top of the page. So you would give them description as if they have the free will to do it, and this is where the mistake is always made. But actually what you're doing is you're just programming a computer. Just like the coder writes in zeros and ones, or writes in all these complex codes to program the computer in a certain way, by you explaining how they do the paperwork, the program is being reconditioned.
So all prescriptions are descriptions, no
Yeah.
exceptions.
Yep, you can't ever have free will. There isn't ever free will. And when you are suffering greatly, and even when you're awakening, there can be this apparent work on the chakras which can release tension and help you in the flow of your life. But that won't lead you to liberation, because who will it lead to liberation? It will only relax the seeking dynamic in the person, which I assume is what has to happen prior to waking up. In most cases, there has to be a relaxation of the personal self. But the chakras can't get anywhere, the thoughts can't get anywhere, they're simply appearing here, so they cannot become enlightened. Enlightenment is right here. Enlightenment is the recognition of something that's already here. It's already free.
So today you are talking about relaxation and shifting, which is a tangible to the human. Whereas liberation is intangible. And this relaxation and this shifting, again, is not a prescription, again it's a description. It happens automatically.
Yeah.
Irrespective of whether you're in non-duality, irrespective of whether you're in ashram, or irrespective of whether you're in a retreat, or you're listening to a teacher, it happens irrespective.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
it could have happened to Hitler.
Yeah. Maybe it did. You know, before he died, like sometime, I mean, I don't know if Hitler definitely did die, but if he did die, you know, sometimes these really intense situations, you know, when you're really snookered, they create a surrendering. And in that surrender, it's recognized. Like Hitler as a person was never responsible for what happened in Nazi Germany, because there was no person there. He was a condition which arose, just like the coronavirus is a condition that arose. It's obviously like a what is it? Is it a fungi or a bacteria?
It's a virus.
A virus, that's it. It's a virus.
It's actually a protein. It doesn't live. It's actually a protein. It's like what protein? Like some meat protein. It's just a protein.
Yeah. So all these conditions all these conditions arose for the virus to arise. And it's not like there's this singular thing called Mr. Coronavirus, which is guilty. I'm certainly getting banned from YouTube this week. They block my videos if I mention this word, but I forgot and I just said it.
Really? Okay.
They don't ban my videos, but they suppress them because I already am quite experimental in what I speak about. When you add coronavirus in that, they're like, trouble, and it's just like an automated thing.
Okay. Probably the artificial intelligence will capture it.
Yeah, it will. Oh, it does. I just have to mention it once and it gets it. I know that if I say it gets suppressed.
There are two things. One is so whatever is happening is really like a real-time video game.
Yeah.
Programmed
Yeah.
by an unknown programmer.
Yeah.
And all these things that you see in blood and flesh, the world wars, the crusades, the love affairs, the Romeo and Juliets, are all part of a inhuman experience, actually.
Yeah. And the computer game always leads to things. So if you think about the way we program computer games, is we're reflecting life itself. So Hitler was an effect of everything that came before. So it was an effect of the political situation in Europe, in Germany after the World War I. There was so many complex reasons, but it was a combination of all these things, and it manifests in this one person, and then this one person gets the blame for it, but he's actually a product of everything else. It doesn't mean that his body doesn't take the responsibility of it. Like if he's captured, he's not put in prison or prosecuted, but it's because otherwise he'll most probably cause trouble in society again if he's released. But in the end, it's nobody's fault. There's nobody guilty. We spend so much time demonizing people. Like, it gives me the shivers reading English newspapers. Like, recent, because of everything that's happened over the last 6 months, I had to read newspapers in order. I also read newspapers apart from that, but I normally, like before that, I was reading issues on Brexit, so then it got changed over to coronavirus. But when I read it, and if I deviate from the subject and go on to like the regular stories of newspapers, so much of it is about demonization of people, like demonization of systems, of people, and there's so much negativity and blame and dislike and complaints. And I understand that from doing that, they're trying to shift political perspective, so that's their objective. So they're trying to stop certain things happen and shift certain things. But it's so negative in the human psyche, and it feeds to this idea of doership. So it makes it more neurotic. So the idea that you're separate is a neurotic daydream that you're having. That sounds like erotic daydream. It's a neurotic daydream you're having. And then added to that is this like perpetual reinforcement of it from society. And it makes people so hateful and angry and blaming. That your unhappiness is because of this, or your unhappiness is because of that. It's very destructive, the idea that independent entities have free will. I understand that it's also progressive, because what it does is, by the idea of free will, it updates our instruments. You say you choose to do this, and then it updates our instruments, and it allows us to create and do things easier in one way. But in another way, it's very destructive for society to believe this as a whole. Like, so everything that happens in society is firstly a result of everything that's ever happened, but it's also a collective dream of humanity. So it's Hitler was, in a way, acting out people's desires and belief systems at that time. Not all people's belief systems, but just like, so in England we've got quite a right-wing government, and that is a result of British current mentality. There's nothing wrong with that or right with that, but it's the same with like any deviant that we have in society is a shadow side of society. And you can narrow that down to a human. So you can see in a human that all humans have shadow sides. So they have dark sides that can be acted out in certain situations. So say if you had everything taken away from you and your wife left you and you became really poor, there could be like shadow sides that come out of you that weren't present when you had lots of money and you were rich and you're wealthy and you had a job. So we all have shadow sides that don't always present themselves in these lives, but they're hidden away in the background. And what happens when you get a deviant in society, they're acting out that shadow side of everybody, of the collective unconsciousness. You could look at this thing called society as one human in a way. Like, when you look down at ants, they kind of, the way they're moving, like when you look at an anthill, is they're kind of moving in sync as if they become like one ant. Like, it's amazing watching the different lines and how they all communicate. And you could say humanity comes like that. So if you imagine humanity and society as like one human, and then all of us are acting out the different dynamics that are present in that current conditioned one human. And then it's the same for the individuals. So our society is a reflection of all of humanity's current thought processes and unconscious and conscious shadows. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
And it's and it's also the beauty that you see in humanity is also acting out. So you see society doing lots of beautiful things in the way it evolves, so it's also acting out that. But why I'm saying that is because we're happy to all be like, yes, the beauty is a collective responsibility of all of us, or we're happy with the beautiful sides that happen in society. But we reject so much the shadow side in ourselves. Like when we're relating with people personally, we're often in denial of our difficult dynamics. We don't want to see that we can be an asshole, or that we can be grumpy, or that we can be selfish. But then we also reject it in society, like, you are guilty of this.
When you're talking about the demonization of, say, Hitler, for an example, what is the perspective and the take home you want us to?
I think it's I think what I'm pointing towards is this illusion of free will or doership, or that anything in this life is to blame for your unhappiness. Like everything is a happening. I know that Hitler caused a lot of suffering by his actions, but he was a result of many, many dynamics that manifested. It wasn't just one man that did all of that alone. And it was so complex. Like also England wasn't innocent in all of what happened. But then the way we imagine it is we think that Great Britain was this innocent victim in it all. I mean, one thing that you told me, I think it was you, or something I learned in India, was that I think that in the Second World War, England ran out of food, and so it took a lot of rice from India, and then just by taking that rice from India, it killed millions and millions of Indian people.
Churchill killed more millions in the Second World War than Hitler killed the Jews inclusive. I think it was 10 million or 30, 40 million.
Yeah.
But the Bengal famine, where the food was taken from India to feed the probable Greek garrisons on reserve, was more, but that was kept hush hush.
Yeah. This is so the narrative goes is that England was victorious, and that's what we're taught in school. But it's not like that. It's so complex. There's so many other elements in it. And if you narrow it all down, it's also society, and what gets acted out in society is a reflection of everybody's conscious minds. And you've got some minds that are more evolved and pulling society forward, and then you've got some minds that are less evolved and pulling society backwards. But it's all a reflection of this collective mind. Like, we can't be separate humans. In the sense that we can't live separately. We can't live like a tiger. We have to live as a whole, as a group. But we're always in this blame game, like this person's guilty, that person's guilty. And this is so much suffering. I'm guilty. Whereas really we're all a product of everything that came before. I mean, just imagine a society that wasn't so judgmental and hateful. It'd be beautiful. Yes.
Yeah, you have, I think, mentioned, and I think it's on your website or somewhere also, that you had a lot of political activism.
Yeah.
And your spirituality ultimately may lead to that in a different dimension
of
human existence.
Yeah.
That you had been to the West Bank when you were younger and things like that. How do you reconcile that part of you, which is a political activist, with this message of not duality?
It kind of
because you have a role play.
Yeah, it kind of got short-lived, because when I was in the West Bank, I went with a Buddhist organization, and when I was there, I kind of saw so clearly that the mind has to be changed first. You can't force society into change without changing all individual minds. It will never work. It will just turn to greed and power again. No matter what structure you erect, when the people that are erecting it have greed and power as their motivation, they might not even know that's their motivation, but that's often what runs our societies. Then the society will go corrupt. The society has to be created from a place of giving, So the people that are creating it have to be coming from this place of giving. So like a tree, in order for a tree to survive, it gives its fruits. So say like a fruit tree, it gives its fruits, and through giving its fruits, the birds spread its seed and diversify everything and ensure the survival of the tree. So the tree, in order for the tree to survive, it has to give, and by giving, it will then receive the bird poo. That when the birds come and feed on it, and nutrients, the birds will take away the seeds or the nuts or the stones or whatever it is in order for new trees to be planted. So, but it starts by the tree giving. If the tree didn't give its fruit, then it wouldn't have enough fertilizer, more than likely, in order to carry on its survival. So we have to come from this place of giving, which is opposite to taking. So at the moment we're led by people that have low empathy, and they are fixated on power and growth. So if you take Donald Trump, for example, when you see him in media interviews, he is always trying to be the strongest person. So I've seen him so many times walking towards the media and then pushing people out of the way to make sure he's in front. And he always tries to be the most direct, the most strong. He dominates people with conversation. He dismisses people. It's always about dominance and getting, and for him. There's this energy that he's not in a state of giving, he's in a state of taking. And this isn't, you can't say that a state of giving is a particular action. It's not about giving away all the state's money. It's not about becoming really liberal or Democrat or Labour or whatever, really left wing, because left wing is just as corrupt as the right wing when you come from this place of taking. It's this different energy when you're coming from a place of giving, and you might be really right wing, but that would be more imbalanced than any political stance that you implemented, whether it be communism, socialism, capitalism. And it's a different energy. And this, to me, is the only way in which a free society will arise, is when the leaders are coming from a place of giving. It doesn't mean, when I said that the moment that the leaders have low empathy, it doesn't actually mean that you can't be from a place of giving with low empathy. You can actually be from a place of giving with low empathy. But normally what you're seeing in leaders is people with low empathy, because people with high empathy can't do those jobs, because they just can't. That there's too much that they would disagree with, and they'd eventually be kicked out. There's too much they would have to compromise. So it normally requires people with lower empathy. And it's not that that's the problem, it's just that currently a lot of people with low empathy have been brought up with the notion that success is taking. So success is taking the most beautiful woman. Success is taking and having and owning the rich man. It's taking and owning being the most successful artist there is in the world. It's owning these things for a personal self. This is mine. This belongs to me. There is nothing that ever belonged to anyone. It's such an arrogant idea that comes with separation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, very much. Has there been any leader in human history who has been an embodiment of what you're just telling?
Yeah, there's been many. Most probably Jesus.
Okay.
Most probably Buddha.
Okay.
Maybe Joan of Arc as well. I don't know so much about her. There's also another female lady, and it doesn't mean that you don't go to war. Sometimes war needs to happen. It's so terrible, but sometimes it does. There's another female as well. I forget her name. Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty. it's just hard to see them and depict, and it's an energy, and it's not about their political policy. It's not about being left-wing or... Huh?
Nelson Mandela.
Yeah, Nelson, maybe, I don't know so much. I mean, I've read documentaries of him, but I've never really looked and listened to him speak. Like it's like an energy that you have to perceive and resonate with, this place of giving, but more than likely Nelson Mandela. But sometimes people can be political activists for the people, like for compassion, and they're actually still coming from a place of taking. That's why I say it doesn't necessarily, it's not like a drawn line.
So the leaders that you have told me, Jesus and Buddha, they are more they are more spiritual. I mean, rather than political leaders.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the type of world that you are talking about with political activism can happen only if there is probably a global enlightenment at a large scale, where out of that community enlightenment, then there pops a leader who can be like that.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean that somebody that's like awakened would be a good leader necessarily. Like it takes lots of conditions to be a leader. Like a leader more than likely needs to have lower empathy. Like, so it's not what a lot of spiritual people would think, but that doesn't mean that they would be a narcissist or that they would be a taker. They'd still be coming from this place of giving, but it's most probably too complicated for somebody with high empathy to be a leader. Like, if you look at all stories and archetypes, like normally the empathy people are advisors to the leader. The leader needs kindness, but it also needs this strength and this ability to think about the whole rather than the individual. But it always has to come from a place of giving, like this true leadership. And you always see it in stories as well, that as it begins to go into the negative, like stories, our storytellers have got wisdom in them, a lot of them, but the negative leader is normally captured with greed, with selfishness. And this is what a lot of our society is about currently. At the top, it's about getting, like what you can get from this society.
Have you read about Mikhail Gorbachev, Russian
Sorry?
leader? Gorbachev, in 1991, who was like, he was the topmost Russian leader, and he was the reason why Russia splintered and communism was like gone for the world.
Yeah.
He rose up the ladder of communism, and with Reagan there was probably could have been a World War III or something. Then he said, okay, I'm just dissolving the entire union of the Soviet, and then Russia got demolished. And he went into oblivion after that.
Why did he do that? To stop the conflict with America?
Yeah. The Cold War, after the Second World War, there was a Cold War between US and the USSR. And the Cold War was actually because of, they had nuclear bombs and they were not fighting each other. And there was a Cold War because of the nuclear bombs. And this was building up a lot of tension. And during Ronald Reagan times, after 1981, around 1985, Gorbachev was the counterpart of Russia. So they were having a lot of treaties and, trying to, what can be done, and they were increasing their nuclear weapons. At that time, Gorbachev made a very wise decision. This will not end, and, this will go up to a World War III. So he said, like, let's dissolve Russia because communism has failed. The communism from Karl Marx to Lenin to Stalin, to his days of 1985 to 88, when they had all these treaties. Then he gave up his premiership. He dissolved Russia. He said communism is finished. By doing that, he just stopped the Cold War and sort of made Ronald Reagan the victor. But actually, I rated him as one of the biggest leaders of modern history. And he went into oblivion. Like, he's now in the background. But communism has failed everywhere except probably China.
Yeah.
Entire East Yugoslavia, blah blah blah, all those places, Romania, Bulgaria, communism just went out. And even the present Russia is not communist; it's more capitalist.
Yeah.
Even China has become capitalist. That was a leader, like who did that, who went up the ladder of Russian communism, and then when he became the number one, said no.
Yeah. The problem is, I mean, I'm really not educated in communism, but my take on it would be that communism gives a lot of power to the state, And then in the state, if you've got people that are greedy, that are taking, then it's just going to be a disaster. It will be so. Yeah, it will be, at least in capitalism, it seems like people have a little bit more control. That might be illusory, but in communism you give up so much to the state. Like, it means that the state has to be really evolved to be able to handle that. If you've got figures that are at the top of the state that are greedy, that are taking rather than giving, they're going to create catastrophes for the individuals in that. And that's a very difficult thing to navigate, because how do you navigate the correct leaders? Like, that's so hard to then say these people are leaders. So, but I don't necessarily think communism is the way forward. I believe in fairness, and I feel like we should maybe go towards a society where everyone has a basic minimum wage, and I feel like there's enough food where everyone could be fed in this planet, and we don't need to be afraid about not being fed. But I also think that humans are innately creative, and that this should be the top priority of any society. And I don't understand communism, but in some ways I think with communism because of it trying to be equal, it doesn't respect the individual's creativity. Like, that we have to honor our creativity, and this is what should be put at the forefront of a society, of a evolved society. Like, not forcing people to work in jobs which don't, to some extent, allow them to be creative, because otherwise you'll just breed like this repetitive work that is very boring for people.
Do you think the animal kingdom is capitalist or communist? Because we are animals, right? We are clothed animals. I always used to think, I'll tell you.
Yeah, it's interesting. What do you think?
It's capitalist, because the lion is the king.
Well, but what about an ant society?
Yeah, I was thinking about it. Ants are minority. If you see the carnivores and the major things,
but these,
I mean, they are capitalist. They are capitalist, and the communism part of it happens if you're weak. The ant is a communist, probably. The buffaloes are communist. The zebras, I know they have sharing, and because they don't have the power. The moment the power comes, you become a capitalist. I've always believed the human being is a clothed animal living in a concrete jungle, and when power comes, power corrupts, and on an average, will become a capitalist. The human will become a capitalist even in a communist society, and that's what happened for 100 years from Karl Marx.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah.
Actually, I had a book of Karl Marx, the Das Kapital, very big book. I couldn't even go to 10 to 20 pages because it was more like a maths book. I was looking at it like theorems. But in this Corona times, I went through the documentaries of Bettany Hughes. She's a British woman who's a historian, and she's got a documentary on geniuses of the ancient world, and there is a 1-hour documentary on Karl Marx. And Marx, who's a German Jew, says, I was surprised, capitalism has to be there for communism to flourish. And he said the first thing he said was religion was the problem of man. Then he said, no, I'm wrong. He corrected himself and he said, capitalism is the problem. But he said the caveat was capitalism is necessary for communism, but then unbridled capitalism is the problem of capitalism. And it eats away the laborer, and the 99% of the wealth goes to the 1% of the ultra rich. There he said communism had to come in, and I think he's wrong, because after him Lenin took it up, and then Stalin screwed up Russia. The entire communism was a flop. So I was thinking the evolution of this should be that we need to have capitalism, but there has to have a check mechanism, not a communism, something else, like a non-capitalist United Nations which has its teeth, which is not like a puppet, which will control these capitalist entrepreneurs like a Rockefeller or a Bill Gates or a Mark Zuckerberg, and put a bridle on them so that creativity is there, but then they don't just rape away the 99% of the wealth and then start creating a problem in the world. I mean, that's what was said about that.
People don't need so much money. Yeah. Like, it's really Sorry. Andy's just crawling along the background.
What's happening?
He's going to the toilet and he doesn't want to be seen.
Okay.
But yeah, I forgot what I was going to say now.
About capitalism and communism and what should be the whether animal kingdom is capitalist. I was always thinking it is capitalist. If you give it power, it becomes a capital. If you give the ant power, it will become a capitalist. It will become a lion. Because it doesn't have power, it becomes a herd. And I have seen it in human relationship also. You have a friend, and then after 10 years, they become rich and powerful. Then everything changes. The originality comes out, and you've been actually living with a phantom.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. About the money, like that. But this is where people have to take responsibility for themselves. Like this is another thing that now I've said coronavirus in this video. It's down, so I'll just go for it. This is another great thing about coronavirus is we need so little. Like, we don't need as much as what everyone thinks. Like I think it's a bit different for you in India, but people in the West think they need so much, and they really don't need so much. And we don't need to collect all these nuggets like for the rest of our life. Like we just need to have a bit more faith in life. Like everyone's busily collecting these nuggets for the future, meaning money, and then storing it away. And it gets crazy, it gets insane as you begin to get richer and richer, like this going up and up and up in the world. It comes with so much strife. I meet so many people that have a lot of money and don't know what to do with it, and it's brought so much strife to them. The power's brought strife. Because then you become a target for other people wanting the money. It's so crazy.
But I think we are in the interface in human civilization where the artificial intelligence is going to take over.
Yeah.
Very soon. The way things are.
Yeah, and it might make it a lot fairer. But it might not as well. Like a lot of people have a negative perspective. Depends who programs it. Depends if a giver or a taker programs it. If you get a taker programming it, then it might be quite horrendous.
Yeah. Just getting back to one of the things I wanted to ask you today was like in the book that you have, in your book for the love of it, there you say at one time it just you suddenly this insight came into you. I mean, it's impossible for this human life to happen with the doership, and then the shift happened.
Yeah. And I think like when I look back, like I can always make up multiple stories about why it happened, but the reason that I think that shift happened is that I really followed and believed what non-duality said. I was quite young and quite naive, and I really did it all. It did what it said. Like I really trusted life over fear. Like I gave up everything. Like in London, I had like a good life. Like I was suffering, but I had a good life, and I'd done well with writing, and I was beginning to make a name for myself in the writing world. I had a job which was super easy, and I got paid full time, and I only had to work very few hours a week. I got a really good wage for it, and I kind of gave up all of that to go and live with Roger, and I made myself really, really vulnerable. I gave up everything, gave up my friends, gave up my family in a way for these 3 years, and kind of not consciously, I wasn't consciously doing it, but unconsciously, or whatever it was, I just followed and did what it said, and really saw that nothing gave me happiness. I went and lived with him, really remote place for 3 years, and saw that my family didn't give me security, friends didn't give me security, scenarios didn't give me security, money, job, success, none of that gave me security. like, because I could see day in, day out that my happiness wasn't dependent on what was happening, because not very much was happening in my life. I just did gardening while I was there. So I could be happy and totally free and be exactly the same scenario. Then I could be suffering and uncomfortable in exactly the same scenario. There was nothing changing. My mind would try and blame things. It would try and blame Roger or the environment, but in the end it couldn't hold on. There was nothing. I really clearly saw that nothing in this life will bring me freedom. Freedom is your internal way of being. And most humans, even though they really love this message and they resonate with it, they don't fully trust it. They hold it off and they still believe, yes, but my nuggets in my bank keep me safe, meaning your money, my husband or wife keeps me safe, or this situation keeps me safe. If that was taken away, I would be unhappy. Because they don't really fully trust that. Whereas quite young, life shoved me into a situation where I really, really surrendered to that and saw. And I think that in that, like there were like that, and then also listening to Roger and all these other teachers in all of these situations, there was something that broke that identification, that believed that happiness was in life, happiness was in time, happiness was in things.
So can I say that it is only true intelligence of trusting life, the wisdom in you, which has saved you?
It wasn't really me though, like with Hitler, it was just like that all these conditions led to that. Like in some way, I think it was like a naivety. Like there is even now present in my Lisa character a naivety. Like I'm so easily led astray. Like you know, I'm not sure if it would happen so much now, but when I was younger, like if I had somebody whispering in my ear about something, I would inevitably try it. Like I was very, like a lot of people would like walk away from someone if they were whispering in your ear about something that you thought wasn't good or was bad or something. But I would inevitably try it. There was like an innocence or a naivety if you had somebody in your ear telling you how good something was. I would try it. There's like a naivety and an innocence here. And so when I got into non-duality, there would be like people saying really extreme things, and I just really went for it. Like I always think back to when I was a kid, and this has nothing to do with me, this is just conditions. Like my brother was very, he pushed the limits to everything. And then I was sort of the younger sister that would always be trying to keep up. And if he tried something, I'd be like, yeah. Like at first I'd be like, no, but he'd then talk me into it. Like if he told me that it was a fantastic experience to jump off the roof, I'd be like, no, that's not wise. And then finally I'd be like, okay, I'll give it a go. And I'd jump off the roof. And it's the same with non-duality. There was this naivety here that just kind of really went for it. Like I could hear therapists. It was so lucky that I didn't go to a really strong therapist. It would be like, this is not a wise idea to give up everything. I could hear parents saying this, but I just sort of was like, okay, give up everything and give it a try. So there were and that's not something that I did. It's just something that's innately built into this character. I can't help it. It's also got me in trouble, and it also could have, got me into a lot of trouble in my life. It has got me in trouble in my life. Like, okay, I'll try. Like if there was a button in front of me that said, do not touch, and every day I was faced with this button, eventually I would touch it. And that's all my grandparents before me that have that tendency, that ended up surviving and ended up breeding and having kids. So it's everything else that came before. There's nothing which is a personal action. The same with Hitler. It goes for me and Hitler. And this is when you begin to see that everything is so impersonal. There's no personal action. There's nothing that anyone can take in and say, this is me, and be proud of. Or reject and be ashamed of. Shame can arise and rejection can arise in the moment, but there's nobody that belongs to, because who? Who are you?
Another question, like there have been instances of a lot of disciples being with their teachers in an ashram.
Yeah.
And that helps in the shift.
Yeah. Yeah.
For example, for you, I mean, you were like with Roger for some time.
Yeah, I was like super intensive, only student.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah, because and I think it's this element of surrender that comes, even, but it's nobody's surrender. It's something that there's grace, even though everything's grace, but it's you know, when you're with a teacher, they chip away at you. Like Roger chipped away at me, like I would be blaming him, but that's why I'm unhappy, or I'd be blaming the scenario, that's why I'm unhappy, or I'd be blaming the hot tub because it stopped working, or I'd be blaming the food, or blaming the garden, or blaming the weather. And then you'd be like, not this, not that, not this, not that, and then having that constant voice in your ear. So also it is down to Roger, but Roger also, that condition doesn't lie with him or me, it's also life that puts that situation. So when you're in an ashram, it's the same thing. It's like constant reinforcement.
So it probably helps.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it seemingly lays the path, prepares the garden for spring. But it's illusory to think that it's their doing or you're doing, just like Hitler. And everybody's path is so unique. Saying, if I said that the way for everyone to become enlightened is to go and live in an ashram, that would be a load of nonsense. That would be illusory as well, because all of that's imaginary and the freedom is right here. And then it's imaginary that's a you that will arrive at this freedom. Nice. I think this is coming to the end of the talk. It's now 8 o'clock here. I normally finish at 8 o'clock. But it's really nice speaking with you, Alanga. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for calling.
Any plans for India tomorrow, next year?
No, I doubt it, especially with all the coronavirus. I'm just going for it now. I'm saying it, coronavirus, coronavirus. The algorithm's got me.
Yeah. You were saying something about Europe, right? Some retreat?
Oh yeah, I have a retreat in Germany, and with Harold in Germany. He's doing Tantra part of the retreat.
It's a physical retreat, right? You have to come there to have it done, right?
Yeah. It's not virtual. No, I've got no virtual retreat. And then one in Spain as well in October. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know about the borders and what's happening at the moment in Europe. And so it's kind of they're there because we booked them before coronavirus. We have to wait and see. Is it hot in India at the moment?
Yeah, hot is gone and it's slowly becoming, I mean, the intense period is between May 5th to May 30th.
Oh
That
yeah.
part was real hot. That's gone now. We slowly will be coming back towards,
Are you going to have monsoon soon?
Yeah, I mean, in Kerala, it's monsoon now.
Yeah.
June.
Oh, that's always so nice. I remember seeing Ramesh when it was monsoon in Mumbai. It was so hot, and then it was such a relief when monsoon came. It was just also a little bit gross because it was so much water, like the whole streets would sometimes be flooded.
I think last week Mumbai had a monsoon, a storm.
Yeah. Yeah, nice. Yeah. Oh, thanks for calling,
Thank you
Alango.
so much.
Yeah,
Thank you
really
so much for
lovely to
taking
speak
call.
with you. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye,
Take care.
Alango.
Bye.
So I just say goodbye to everybody. So if you had questions for the live stream, it got taken. We just spoke to Alango, so I was going to say taken over, but that sounds negative. It was actually really beautiful. But it means that nobody else's question gets answered. So hi Wesley, hi Satosh, hi Jara, hi Vera. Hi Josie. Hi Monique. Hi Carmela. Hi Vera. Hi D.Y. Dudley. Yeah, nice to see you all. See you to come again Sunday to next Sunday to hi Irene. Yeah, you have to come next Sunday to ask the question. Oh, sorry. Just finishing the talk on burps again. Yeah. Yeah, so thank you for joining. I really enjoyed speaking with you, and I send you so much love. So much love. Au revoir. Auf Wiedersehen. Konnichiwa.